Welcome back to Recharging the Human Battery Radio Show. I'm your host, Dr. Stefano Sinicropi, and we are on AM 950 radio on this beautiful morning. So, as you guys know, I'm so passionate about everything health and wellness. But as a longtime practicing physician, I like to really think about issues that not only affect the general population, but also the physician population and where things are going as far as how we are as physicians treating patients, where we are going as far as strategizing on how to take care of people with a significant elevation in chronic diseases, and the fact that we are spending so much money right now, $4.4 trillion spend in the United States, scheduled to go to $7 trillion by 2030, but yet people are getting sicker and sicker. And it's really, the name of the game is it's taking more and more of us to be able to take care of the population, because we're getting to a point where almost everyone is sick. And it's a big problem. I mean, the number of people that have one or two chronic diseases is alarming. And we've talked about this before on the show. I really rarely see patients that are middle-aged and up in my clinics that are coming in just for regular spine conditions. They're just coming in for low back pain or neck pain, or somebody told them they need a surgery and they're being referred to me. I rarely see people that we would consider metabolically healthy or well. And actually, most of the people I see personally, are on a lot of medications, are unwell, have a long list of different diseases that we need to deal with as we think about doing surgeries on them. And so it's just a big problem. We've gotten ourselves to the point where we have I don't want to sound morbid, but we really do have a sick society. And we need to think about, how are we going to treat all these people? What's it going to take? So I thought the two issues that we could talk about, and I really want to hear your questions and what you have. Please, leave them in the comments, or, drop us an email and let us know what you think on this. But I think two huge things that need to be addressed, and I've been talking about this all week with my staff and with future physicians, are number one, we have a huge physician crisis, physician shortage crisis in this country. Actually, the numbers are fairly staggering. And with people, we keep focusing on the baby boomers now turning of age and having many more disease. But the truth is the entire population is getting sicker. So how are we going to take care of all these people with the current number of physicians that we have? So I'm going to talk about some strategies on that, and some out-of-the-box strategies, and how we can look at that. The other thing that I do want to talk about is, we have a shortage. We don't have enough spots as far as medical school, but yet the medical school selection process, in my personal opinion, is wild. And the question is, are we bringing people into the medical community that are truly the most dynamic, the most out-of-the-box thinkers, people that are more resilient, people that can really use their life experiences to help solve these crises? Or are we focusing on testing and scores and things like that? I'm going to talk about ways we can maybe do a better selection process when it comes to getting people into the medical school system, who are going to be future physicians, who are going to be taking care of you and your health. What kind of physicians do you want taking care of you? That's a question we're going to address on the other side of this thing. Bottom line is, I'm so passionate about these topics. Let's talk them out. I think we're going to take a couple of episodes to talk about these issues, because there's just really too much to talk about in one 60-minute segment. But on that note, we'll see you on the other side of the break, and let's get into some of these issues and think about ways we can really help to make things better for you and your families. Dr. Stefano Sinicropi here, host of Recharging the Human Battery radio show. If you've been listening to me, you know how passionate I am about health and vitality. As founder of the Hypercharge Clinics, I'm dedicated to restoring your human battery to reboot your vitality, health, and performance. We focus on proactive wellness care, optimizing health and longevity by treating chronic conditions, chronic fatigue at the cellular level, all without medication or surgery. Do you suffer from chronic pain, disease, or just have low energy levels? Do you have more serious conditions? Well, Hypercharge Clinic is for you. We use non-invasive, non-operative modalities to improve your energy, slow aging, boost brain health, and help you to rapidly recover from injury and just to be your very best. Experience the future of wellness today. Call or schedule online for your free introductory session. Hypercharge is hope. Visit hyperchargeclinics.com now. All right, everyone, and welcome back to Recharging the Human Battery radio show. I'm your host, Dr. Stefano Sinicropi. We are on AM 950 radio. You know, we've got a lot of things to talk about. Medicine today is really at a crossroads. I think with our chronic disease crisis that we've got going on, and you know what? I'm not going to mince my words. It's a crisis. This is one of the major reasons that, you know, even though my training is in orthopedic spine surgery, I've been doing it for a long time, eventually this crisis and the sickness that I see that has developed throughout our society is something that really drove me and made me become just rabidly passionate about thinking about health and well-being and how I can take all of my own personal experience, training, taking care of patients for years, doing a lot of surgeries, being in the boardroom, all that stuff, take in information on what's going on in health and wellness, and then distill it into a manner that I can help you to understand, number one, how you can be the CEO of your own healthcare, how you can take care of yourself and your families, but also taking very important concepts that I think are really not clearly understood, not only by the general public, but frankly by experts themselves, and putting this all together in a digestible format so that we can help to educate you and your families on what is going on so that you can be informed and make better decisions, both for yourselves, but also when you are deciding, you know, how do you vote? How do you, you know, what are you passionate about? What are you trying to promote? Where are your energies being placed? And I think I'm trying to get people on this wellness and health train because it's really the only way we're going to turn around this mess that we're in today. And, you know, you guys know me. I mean, for those, some of you don't, but for those of you that know me, you know that I'm Mr. Positivity. It's always, you know, glass is half full, but I can't sit around speaking in terms of everything's great. Oh my God, we've got all these great solutions and things are going to be wonderful. Not with what I'm seeing. If you look at the rates of illness in our society, I mean, it's skyrocketing. So that leads me to today's topic, you know, and there are two things that I'm really passionate about, and I'm going to pick this up on a future episode with my co-host Mandy, who's not here today. She's on a wonderful vacation, and hopefully she's having a great time, but we'll hold down the fort here, you know, without her. And these two topics are the following. You know, with people getting sicker and sicker, and with people getting older and older, there are so many people that need care. Now, you know, my mantra, I think that the majority of these chronic diseases are absolutely preventable with lifestyle and other things. But let's, you know, I have to be realistic too. Just because I'm jumping up and down and there's other, you know, health and wellness advocates jumping up and down to try to make these changes, it doesn't mean they're going to happen anytime soon. I mean, this is going to be an uphill battle. This is the salmon swimming upstream. And so it's going to be a long road ahead, and I'm going to do everything I can. And I know that the people that I'm surrounding myself, with are so passionate about doing that. But the truth is, we've got a major crisis on our hands. And one of the big crises is the physician shortage crisis. Now, let's talk numbers. Okay, and I'm not trying to alarm you, but I'm trying to educate you. So we are projected, okay, in some studies, to have a shortage of 86,000 physicians by 2036. That's almost 100. And you know how many people each physician can treat. It's a lot. And so let's break it down. So depending on the different surveys or organizations that you look at, when it comes to primary care physicians, we're talking shortages of 20 to 50,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. And then if you look at all of the specialty, physicians, people that are doing your surgeries and your procedures and things like that, or people that are more subspecialized like cardiologists and things like that, you're talking 20 to 80,000 physician shortage. What does that mean? Over time, it's going to get harder and harder if we don't turn around our illness crisis to see a physician. Now, there is a huge push to extend physician extenders. I am a proponent of that, and there's a lot of different questions surrounding that, and we are going to do a show with my co-host in the future talking about the differences between physician training and training of physician assistants and nurse practitioners, which is a really important conversation to have, really not for the purposes of today, but the bottom line is, for physicians who have to spend 4 years of medical school and then whatever number of years of training, like, for example, my training was 6 years just in residency because I did an extra year in research and then a whole other year of fellowship training. So now you're talking 7 extra years, and sometimes it's even longer, depending on the specialties. We're talking about these guys, right? These guys and gals that are going to be the future, physicians. We have a huge physician shortage coming up. Now, when we look at the physician shortage, not only am I personally worried about looking at, the numbers based on attrition of physicians currently. So if we look at, how many people are leaving the workforce versus how many physicians we need and looking at how many medical school spots we have. But let's think about something else. One of the things that I've been really talking about is, one, the high level of burnout amongst physicians. And I can tell you, listen, I'm in the trenches. Okay, so not only now am I in the doctors' lounges and just talking to doctors all the time, but now I, with the podcast, with the radio show, I'm talking to physicians all the time. Unfortunately, because of the stress levels of what's going on in medicine, with the burdensome paperwork, with the bureaucracy that's going on, with the corporatization of medicine, the level of physician burnout is growing and growing and growing. Okay, without getting into significant statistics, I can tell you a very high percentage of physicians feel overworked and burnt out, and I'm very worried as they start to age that they're going to be leaving the workforce even faster than what we are doing now. So those numbers can get worse and worse, and so we really have to think about these things. And so there are some serious decisions we need to make as a medical community, but also policy decisions that need to come from governmental bodies, from medical organizations that are going to determine whether or not you're going to have access to physicians, but physicians that are really excited and dialed in, to treat you. That's a whole other topic that we can get into. You're going to have very different care from somebody who's burnt to a crisp, let's say, versus somebody that is healthy, energetic, rearing to go, wants to solve your medical problems. So we've got a lot of things, really, really to make, a difference here. So when we look at the physician shortages that are coming up, what is this going to lead to? It's going to lead to increasing times to see a physician. This is a problem, especially if you have something serious going on that then doesn't get diagnosed, that then leads to you getting sicker and not having that addressed, whereas potentially it could have been addressed, sooner. What else does it lead to? It leads to more physician burnout, right? The less of us there are, the more, burnt out physicians are going to be, right? So if people can't find things and they're just trying to pile on the schedules of the same, women and men that are doing this, what happens? It becomes harder and harder. And what's another potential, downstream thing that has already happened with the corporatization of medicine? Guess what? Your visits with the docs are going to get shorter and shorter, because I can tell you, if somebody needs to see 50 patients a day versus seeing 10 patients a day, do you think that the treatment decisions are going to be the same? Do you think that the comprehensiveness is going to be the same? No, the answer is obviously no. So on top, when we talk about the physician shortage crisis, we have to make radical changes in the way we address it. So let's talk about some of the things that we can do to combat the physician shortage crisis. Number one, we need to absolutely increase the number of spots in medical schools today. Again, this is going to take an effort from medical boards, medical societies, from our governmental bodies. We need more money to be able to fund more schools to train more doctors. And we need people with this length of training, because I can tell you that training 4 years in med school and then 7 years after that, in those 11 years, the amount of information that I was able to learn and the amount of mentors that were able to, that I was able to be exposed to is dramatic. We can't shorten it. We can't say, hey, I have a solution to the problem. Let's make training 4 years total, including med school and residency training. It just doesn't work that way. And for, those of us that are insiders, we know, it just doesn't work. You just need to put in the time under, board certified, giants, right? The giants of medicine. We stand on the shoulders of giants. We need that time. So we cannot condense it. So we need to expand the number of medical school, programs. We need to absolutely incorporate AI into this whole thing. I think that AI is going to make a massive difference in helping physicians to reduce burnout, and in also helping physicians to do a lot more work personally. But I think with the advent of AI and AI in medicine, it's going to allow physicians to be more efficient. And so I think that's really going to help our physician shortage, at least to the physicians that are in. Obviously, that doesn't actually help the numbers, but it certainly is going to help that. I think that we need to think about more collaborative ways while we're in training to work with expanding nurse practitioner and physician assistant schools and programs, so that we are more in tune. So by the time that we finish our training and they finish their training, we have a better awareness of how to work together, because obviously their training is not quite as long. They're wonderful people. I honestly, we for example, our practice, we couldn't even think about running our practice and the amount of people we have to see without our wonderful nurse practitioners and physician assistants. But again, their training is different. So really working together and collaborating with them, in a different way, I think is going to make a difference. And again, that's the subject of a whole other show, and way too in depth on just to do in one program. That's an entire show. Another thing we can do on the physician shortage is really we need to increase public awareness. We need to be out there as physicians lobbying to Congress and to others to expand physician programs, to expand funding. We just need more doctors, right? Until we fix this entire problem, we need more doctors. So public awareness and advocacy is just going to be so important in looking at how we can stem this crisis. Now, obviously, we're in the middle of a very contentious political season right now, but guess what I'm not hearing at all? I'm not hearing much. We hear about healthcare this and that, and people are paying too much, and those are all great things, but no one's talking about the physician shortage. Honestly, I follow politics pretty closely, and my my skin in the game on politics is just what are the policies going to be, no matter what administration's in place, right? I'm not a very political guy otherwise, but definitely need to be on top of what different politicians, both at the national and the local level, are doing. I'm not hearing any talk on the physician crisis, physician shortage, the fact that people are struggling to get in and appointments. I can tell you in orthopedic surgery, okay, especially in orthopedic spine surgery and some of the other subspecialties, and in neurosurgery, the waits for people are getting longer and longer. And that's why, for our organization, we've expanded so much because one of our, we understand how important it is for people to have access to our services because people are suffering, they're hurting, and they need access, and they're not finding access. And the more rural they get, the less access they have. Now, there's critical access hospital, and there's expansion of telehealth and other things which are allowing them more access, but it doesn't substitute for actually having a conversation with the expert that can really help you through your crisis. So honestly, this is something that is near and dear to my heart, and I think that we need to do a much better job in getting ahead of this physician shortage crisis, because otherwise it's going to affect you and your families, and we're going to be in a tough spot here just in a couple of years. In my opinion, it's already tough because of what's happened to the physician mindset and also, what's happening with burnout and other things and how long it's taking for you guys to get into, a doctor of your choice anyway. But, man, if I think 5 years down the road, if we don't get a handle on this, we are going to have a big, big problem. So that's that. Let's put that to bed for a second, and let's talk about something that is actually so near and dear to my heart. So why am I talking about this today? So this week, before I'm doing this show, I had a very long conversation with a couple of pre-med students. One of my concerns in who we are admitting into medical schools, and I know, I'm not trying to be controversial. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just trying to give a different voice and perspective to the way that we're doing this. And so, again, I'm an insider. I talk to people all the time. I write letters of recommendation for pre-med students all the time. I mentor students, okay? I know what's going on out there. So this is not meant in any way to be controversial or anything like that, but I am concerned about our medical school selection process today and what we are focusing on. What are the key areas we're focusing on? Now, there is a lot of talk out there. If you look at medical school websites, if you look at other things, if you look at what people are saying, there's talk, but I'm not really seeing this on the ground. And that is in really getting more I don't know how to put this, in a way that, listen, everyone's going to take offense to, anything that we say, but I just have to put it out there. How do we get people that are more resilient? How do we get people into medical schools that are frankly more dynamic, that have different types of life backgrounds that may not have allowed them to score perfect scores on their, their SATs or their MCATs, on their GPAs? What is our focus? Now, let's talk about where is this all coming from, from my perspective. So number one, I can tell you I've written letters of recommendation for people that I know personally who have very good grades. They've done well, and they have done well on their MCATs and everything. Now, they don't have perfect scores, but they are dynamic individuals who care, are resilient, and I know that they can handle the pressure of becoming physicians and all of the stresses that we have to deal with, on a daily basis. But yet, so many of them, okay, some I've written letters, for, and some, my colleagues have written letters for, are not getting into schools. And we really know how great of physicians they would be. Resilient, being able to really handle the toughest situations. People, women and men that you want in the operating room when something goes wrong, right? On the flip side, I am concerned that because there is such an emphasis still in so many schools on perfect resumes that, they are so, perfect that they look like they could be CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. But yet, are these people, are they resilient? Have they been able to get through serious crisis situations? Are they going to break under pressure? How are we testing all that? Yeah, MCAT doesn't test that. Your GPA doesn't test that. I get it. We spend a lot of time studying and doing things. But I can tell you it's changed. It's different than the way that we were screening, in the past. It's different. I sat with a physician who was doing the Harvard program for business as part of an entrepreneurial program that she's doing. And she's been out just as long as me, about 20 years. And she was talking, and she basically said with her resume, she'd be nowhere near going into medicine. But yet, she is in the endocrinology field. She's done amazing things in her career and now doing all kinds of entrepreneurial things. Think about that for a second. She didn't get in, right? She wouldn't have gotten in today. She's 100% confident. And I think about some of the people that I went to med school that maybe didn't have perfect scores, but, man, they were resilient. They went through other types of tests in life, and they got in. So, the name of the game here is I had this long conversation with these pre-med students on my frustration with how challenging it is now, to get to med school, and how maybe we are missing so many potentially great candidates that would be amazing physicians that end up working in industry, end up in sales, end up, entrepreneurs, end up, doing other things, end up doing lab work for Pfizer or whoever, because they weren't able to get into med school. So again, the way I tie this all together is if we expand the number of medical school spots, there's going to be a lot more room for these really dynamic souls to get in, and we need them because we need to be able to think out of the box. Right? If you think about where we are really struggling now, right, in the community, is we have a tremendous chronic disease crisis. People are not healthy. Their well-being is off, and we need really out-of-the-box solutions. So if you've got a bunch of people that are not out-of-the-box thinkers, that are basically kind of follow the crowd, study to the test, those types of people, are those the folks that are going to do the best job in solving our crises? Or is it people that have really been tested under fire? Yeah, they might not be the A+++ students. They might just be the A students. But what if the A students combined with resiliency and other things, are maybe better fits to become doctors and surgeons than people that might be better fits to be nuclear physicists, but not so much to handle people on a social level, on an everyday level, understanding their needs, their wants, and what we need to do with them. And so it's complicated. So just a couple of things that I believe would really help. What about doing things like stress management workshops beforehand and gauging how these young people can handle high levels of stress? This can be based on potentially simulations that seriously stress them under pressure. I can tell you, for example, as a spine surgeon or my colleagues that are neurosurgeons, when we're in the operating room, and we're doing a surgery, if something goes very, very wrong, or something happens with, their heart or whatever happens, right, during things, we need to make decisions in a very rapid fire way. Now, what are we doing? We're using a checklist, right, which can just be memorized. You do this, this, and that. But I can tell you, I've personally been involved in many situations where it's the out-of-the-box thinking that has absolutely saved life and limb on these patients. I can tell you, getting perfect scores on the SAT doesn't necessarily test whether you are going to be able to withstand the stresses of a situation like that. So I think that we need to do some type of simulation to see whether or not people can handle those types of stresses. We also need to test people to see if they are going to be more subject to developing severe burnout and then becoming just, number one, not really enjoying what they do, but having burnout so severe that they leave the workforce. If we train a bunch of people that are not resilient enough and then are going to leave the workforce, where is that going to leave us, right? I mean, it is a complex issue. I think that we also need to have emotional intelligence testing. I think emotional intelligence testing and how they manage situations and having situational awareness is just as important to how high you can score on tests that rely mostly on memorization. It is so important to be able to do this, right? And so we need to look at different ways. And again, that's beyond the scope of like looking at what specific potential tests we can set up and doing things. But these are just thought exercises that I'm just trying to have with the general public so they're aware of how we are making decisions in choosing who becomes the next generation of doctors, right? So how do we tie these two scenarios together? Physician shortage, and then how we choose people to go into the medical field, right? How do I tie this all together? And so you're thinking, this guy, right, how is he bringing this together? And so it's very simple. If we don't choose the right type of individuals to go into the medical field, okay, and we're not always going to be right. It's just like, it's just like anything else. It's just like a coach choosing, their next college football team or NFL football team or a basketball team. You're not going to be right on every single draft selection or pick that you make, but we have to be more right than not when we have a crisis. So we have to make sure that all of the people that we're admitting or most of the people that we're admitting into these medical schools can handle the pressures. Okay, I'm not talking about the pressures of studying. I mean the pressures of just being a physician, the grind. It's every day, the pager going off, the phone going off, the constant emails, the stress that we have in surgery, the stress of sick patients, the stress of dealing with family members, the stress of dealing with patients that are upset, right? The stress of dealing with when things go horribly wrong. And guess what? Sometimes they go wrong all at the same time. We can't melt down. We've got a lot of people that we're treating. We've got to choose the right candidates to get into medical school. And again, this is something that a much, much broader, discussion needs to be had on. If we don't make the right decisions there, our physician shortage is going to get even worse, because as soon as these young, people come out, they're going to get into situations of stress and crisis, and they're going to right away look for the exits. We can't have that. So I think that we really need to change our mentality when thinking about how we make medical school, selections. Now, I just want to share, a quick story with you. I was talking to one of my mentors a couple of months ago, and he is now on the medical school selection criteria. And we got into this exact, conversation. And he told me about 3 candidates that he had interviewed that previous week. On paper, he was just telling me, one was the, captain of a badminton team at a very big school. Another one somehow was on the board of a big, U.S. company. Another one was doing, something else. And he basically said to me, I don't even know exactly how to even decide, amongst all of these different resumes on how to, say, yes, we're going to interview you, or no, we're not going to interview you, because frankly, the resumes now they're so padded and they're so over the top. I mean, these are multi-page resumes. Again, no different than a resume that one of us would submit to be the CEO of a hospital. I mean, it's crazy. But you know what is not really what's not well conveyed on those resumes, and this is what we talked about, and I'm so passionate about this, is how resilient are they? Yes, you can look at what they've done and where they volunteered and other things they've done, but how do they handle true pressure situations? We need to have that as part of the decision-making, criteria. And, he agreed. And this is something that we're going to talk more and more about. And hopefully, my colleagues, if they're listening to this, will chime in. What are their ideas? What's their experience? What do they see? Because you know what I see? I see now people that had stellar grades, did very, very well, but yet are burnt out early in their careers, have trouble communicating with patients, are upset with patients, or upset with the world, or upset with what's going on in medicine. And I think there's a better way to see whether or not medicine is right for some people to make the choice to dedicate their whole lives to. Again, I'm not saying that, we listen, if you want to be a doc, it's great. I love it. I hope all young people want to be doctors, because it's an amazing thing to do. I'm just saying that if you're going to dedicate your life to doing this, number one, it's better for you if you are equipped with the tools to be able to tolerate the things that you need to tolerate as a physician. But from a standpoint of the system, our system, we can't afford to give people spots that, even though they have stellar grades, they've done all these things, if they are not ready to go through the trials and tribulations of what we go through, they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle, and man, they are not set up for success. So again, I'm really passionate about this, and I'm going to continue talking about ways that we can get this better. So hopefully everything I talked about here today gives you a better understanding of how bad the physician shortage is developing, and how maybe we need to look at how we bring people into the fold in a different way. On that note, let's end this. I want to share a story with you about when I was interviewing for medical school. My favorite interview, okay, without telling you which program I was interviewing. So the place where I was interviewing, while I was doing the interview, I actually had to play the game Operation. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. Most of you are. Maybe some of you young folks listening to this are not as familiar. I don't know if it's as popular as it used to be. But basically, there's these little holes on this game, and you have to take tweezers and pull out different bones of the body from the patient as if you're doing an operation. I did an entire medical school interview where the whole time I had to play Operation, because they wanted to see if under pressure I was able to play the game, answer questions at the same time. And it was more not to see how many times I hit the side and buzzed, right? Because I wasn't necessarily trying to, to get, I wasn't doing surgical training at the moment, but it's to see how I reacted when I made a mistake while they are grilling me on my entire life, and why they should give me an opportunity to do that. Something as simple as that can make a difference to see, because honestly, if I'm interviewing somebody and they're doing that and they're absolutely panicking while they're doing it, not panicking because of the questions, but panicking because they're making mistakes, I don't know if they're going to be able to handle it when a patient is having serious blood loss and surgery. And guess what? The only person that can solve that problem is you. So these are the kinds of things that we really need to think about as we go forward. Do we need to do tactical training for people? Do we need to do different scenarios? I don't know. But I'm passionate about this. I want to make a difference. I want you to help me to make a difference, and that's why I'm always asking for your comments, your suggestions. What do we need to do to improve the physician, shortage crisis? What do we need to do to make sure that people that are making the decision to go into medical school really have the right stuff, using the NASA term, to be able to withstand a long career of a lot of stresses, trials, tribulations, and not quit? Not move away from it, and really help to make critical changes that are necessary to stem the chronic health issues that we've got going on in our country that are only getting worse. So we will see you on the other side of the break. We'll tie it all up, and obviously we've got a lot more to talk through before we can make the difference that we're looking for. Chronic disease, poor sleep, post-surgical recovery, aging, brain health, low energy, post-COVID syndrome, addiction, recovery from injury, cognitive decline. As a long-time practicing surgeon, I wanted to design a clinic that could address all of these issues without medications or surgery. This is Dr. Stefano Sinicropi here, host of Recharging the Human Battery Show and founder of Hypercharge Clinics. And I know it seems too good to be true, but believe me, it's not. Hypercharge Clinic specializes in optimizing health and longevity, combating the symptoms of chronic disease by treating the cause at the source, the cellular level of the body, by targeting the core of our cells, the mitochondria, with non-invasive therapies like Class 4 laser, red light, and many others. We are introducing a new era of medicine that promotes faster healing, pain relief, wellness, and human performance like never before. Experiencing is believing, so call us and schedule your online free introductory session today. Visit hyperchargeclinics.com now. Hypercharge is hope. All right, folks, and welcome back to Recharging the Human Battery Radio Show. I'm your host, Dr. Stefano Sinicropi. We are on AM 950 radio, and as usual, I am fired up. Sometimes, I feel like I almost am going to start hyperventilating when I talk about some of these topics that are near and dear to my heart. And so just to summarize what we talked about today, physician shortage crisis is a big deal. We really need to think about ways on beefing the situation up, because our population is really too sick. And we talked about that ad nauseum today. But let me go back to why I'm doing this all in the first place. The best way that we can help the physician shortage crisis today, this day, is to improve all of our own personal health and well-being by becoming CEOs of our own healthcare, understanding that our lifestyle choices, what we put in our mouths, right, what we put in our brains, the toxins that we are around, the toxins that we're consuming, the toxins that we consume on mass media, social media, being on our phones all day, all of this is contributing to the very significant chronic health crisis, which is basically most of the healthcare spend today, most of what you need us as physicians to take care of. Guess what? If you follow some of the recommendations that we talk about on our shows, that other, health and wellness advocates, that health and wellness physicians are talking about, man, we could make such a difference. Imagine how many less physicians we would need if we had less diabetes, less obesity, less joint disease, less Alzheimer's disease, less hypertension, heart disease. I can go on for, a long, long list. And so just making simple lifestyle changes And of course, some of my favorite, biohacks, throwing that in there, throwing in vetted supplements that can help you. All of these things can make a massive, massive impact today, much, much faster than increasing the number of medical school spots, changing legislation and so on. So let's make a difference together by getting healthier. And guess what? Maybe you don't even need to see us anymore because you're not in that position. On the other front, when we talk about, what type of physician, do we want today? We need open-minded, dynamic physicians that have life experiences that are going to help them to live under crisis situations, but more important, be able to understand you and your needs, talk to you on a human-to-human personal basis, and really understand, what's going on. Spouting out what you read in a textbook is very different than deeply understanding what's going on with you and your health, having empathy, and then using a vast knowledge base to help you be the CEO of your healthcare and help you with your own condition, as opposed to what goes on today, which is a lot of paternalistic, talking, down to people, just telling people what to do, being very close-minded in newer ideas, technologies, health, well-being, spirituality, energy healing, biohacking, dietary changes, all of these other things, which, man, again, here I go. I'm about to hyperventilate again because these are the things that should cause hyperventilation because we've got so much work to do together. So on that note, hopefully this wasn't too much of a rant for you. Hopefully it was somewhat coherent. I'm going to be back next week with my co-host Mandy, and we're going to pick this up again because we are really, really, I think, making some progress on these issues together. And we will see you on the next episode of Recharging the Human Battery Radio Show. I'm Dr. Stefano Sinicropi. This is AM 950 Radio, and have a wonderful rest of your day.